In Giving Voice, the piece that I wrote for you, about 5, 6 years ago now, I had the text, I found the texts first, but in terms of the musical material, I started out with an idea of an ensemble that I wanted to write for, and that was sort of cross-referenced with the ensemble for Nigel Butterley's work Orpheum Mysteria, which was on the same program. I wouldn't say that I'm particularly drawn to any one musical medium more than others. It's like they all have their pros and cons. There's things you can achieve with an orchestra that you can never achieve with a chamber ensemble. Chamber music gives you the opportunity to get in deeper. You can work with performers individually, each of whom has more at stake, I suppose, in the performance, particularly if you're dealing with something where you've got a soloist, such as a vocal soloist. There's a whole lot of things about precision and about finesse and about subtlety, all of which are things that appeal greatly to me as a composer, for which chamber music is the ideal medium. But, that said, the smaller you go, the more attractive the constraints become. Even within a chamber work, I'll often, and Giving Voice is a good example of this, only 2 of the movements of Giving Voice are scored for all the performers. There are a couple of the movements there's just voice and one instrument. There's others that might be voice plus a trio. And it's really fascinating to sort of like have this little microcosm, the little universe that you establish, and then you say, okay, all right, I know I've got all of those colours, but let's restrict it to piccolo, guitar harmonics, and a cello drone. What can I do just with that? The one instrument that caught my attention on the list of instrumentation for the Butterley that wasn't part of my original plan was the guitar. And I find often that this is the case, that I'll sort of come across a possibility like that and think, no, that won't fit. And then I'll say, hang on, if I'm reacting against it, that's probably interesting. How can I make it fit? And so I turned it around and thought, well, actually, I haven't written for guitar very much. I've written for it a couple of times, but this is a chance to tackle it again. And the basic musical material for that piece is, in fact, a series of chords that are playable on the guitar, and worked through systematically a series of 6-note chords, each of them involving 2 of the open strings and 4 stopped strings in a pattern which is reachable by the hand. And that was my pre-compositional constraint. Then I had a set of 15 chords to play around with. Each song within that 8-song cycle uses a different selection of those chords. There's 1 or 2 of them that are based just on a single chord. Only in one of them is the entire set of 15 chords used. And that became then, once I've got a musical idea like that, then I start thinking, okay, well, what's the metaphorical connection between that and what the piece is about? And the connection is, I think, clearest in the 5th piece, which is based on my daughter Sophia's words of vocabulary at age 20 months. And essentially that whole movement is about constructing a language. It's about learning a language, acquiring it, but not only acquiring it, actually building it in an active sense. Babies don't just absorb what's around them, they actually respond creatively and build their own sort of linguistic worlds. And so that then became a kind of a parallel process to what was going on in the compositional language.